Hi, I'm Claudia Brown Coulter with Pivotal Peace. I'm your go-to mediator for navigating divorce while parenting children with special needs. I'm also a legal document assistant, LDA, based in the greater Los Angeles area. Today is Monday and it is Mediation Mondays. So while other days mediation is alluded to, today really is all about mediation. So let's talk about your divorce, navigating divorce, and the unique needs of your children that have special needs. So let's talk about some of those needs. One of them is depending on the needs of your child, they may be sensitive to sensory input. You're like, why is this important? Because as you're thinking about your parenting plan, as you're thinking about moving from from one household to two, this is something you need to consider of how being in a physically different location may impact your child. You want to minimize their stress as much as possible, and you want to do that by having a calm and stable environment. Another option to think about is you could have one household divided into two, but maybe your children stay put. Some people choose nesting, and I mean not just for little kids. I recently talked to someone who has high school students and they're still nesting. That wouldn't work for me, but that works for them. So if that works for you, it's something to consider. Another thing is about maintaining the routine. All children, but especially if your children have been identified as having some sort of special need, routine is your saving grace because they know what to expect. You know what to expect. Divorce has so many different changes. So keeping the routine the same as much as possible is really going to help your child transition. And then you want to think about the legal things that impact your child. You're not just divorcing, you're creating a new parenting plan and you're creating a legal document of how you will parent your children. So this is something that you need to take some time because once again, we want to minimize the stress on our kids. So one of the ways you do this is by having a good relationship with your co-parent. Now you're like, girl, you just said we were getting a divorce and now you want me to have a good relationship. Do you think that if we had a good relationship, we would even be getting a divorce? I know. And especially people who have children with special needs, depending on the severity of those needs. And I keep saying that because everything is a range, everything is a spectrum. But those needs tend to put more stress on parents. So there's a higher incidence of divorce in that community. But I have seen time and time again, if a parent works on themselves, don't worry about that other person. If you just work on yourself, the further you get away from divorce, the higher likelihood you will have of having a good relationship with your co-parent. So it starts now, though. It starts now in how you talk to them, how you communicate with them, how you think about them. Listen, you are allowed to have your thoughts. You are allowed to have your opinions. But try to temper those when you come into the mediation space because those things bleed through the tone of your voice. It bleeds through your facial expression. It bleeds through your size. So even if you kind of have to fake it, you've got to psych yourself up and really think about, okay, let me see how I can approach this person and how I can have a good relationship with them. And it starts with really clear communication. Being clear, being open. You don't have to share everything, but when we're talking about our kids, you need to be sharing that stuff. It needs to be clear and open communication. That's going to create a really good foundation for a good co-parenting relationship going forward. And then when you are talking to your co-parent and when you're in mediation, you're really thinking specifically about this parenting plan. What do our children need? Not just what does one child need, what is easiest, but how can we meet the needs of every single one of our children? We can't have like a million different plans, but what plan would meet their needs the best? You also have to think about, people really don't like paying money, and I get it. Like, I can't stand you anymore, and now I got to pay you money? But that is the reality. And we're not, and people feel that way not just about spousal support, they feel that way about child support. But this is a conversation that really does need to be had. You have to talk about child support. The court maintains jurisdiction over child support. It is much better to have a conversation about child support in mediation than in front of a judge. You don't want to have a contested conversation. Your child likely has different needs. Their support may need to go well past the age of 18. What if your kid, has to go to school till they're 19, 21, but they don't actually end up with a high school diploma? Your kid is going to need extra support as they age out of the school system and as they become an adult, and they may never be self-supporting and independent. So these conversations about child support and then support as that child becomes an adult, those are important to have, because this is your child that you guys brought into this world together or that you've adopted together. And so they need your continued support. The other thing to think about as you are considering divorce and as you are walking through this process is emotional support. I talk a lot about you need to probably go see a therapist. It's great. It's very, very helpful. But the other thing I want you to consider is also thinking about your child. Is your child seeing a therapist? Now, your child is probably seeing lots of therapists for different therapeutic needs, but for their emotional needs, are they seeing a therapist? Because you're going to see an uptick in behavior of these negative behaviors that you've worked hard to get rid of. It's very likely that there's going to be an uptick of them as their living situation changes. Behavior is a form of communication. They are telling you something with that behavior. Wouldn't it be a better idea to get them working with someone who can help them get their emotions out, who can help them express themselves in a way that is more constructive than destructive? That's just food for thought for you. And then lastly, as we are working in mediation, we are working on a parenting plan that's crafted to you. That's like your day in, day out. You're thinking about support. You're thinking about their schedule and all the different therapies and group activities and things that they need, their extracurriculars as on top of that. You want to create a group of professionals who support you. So you've got your IEP team at school who will support your child. You need to communicate with them that a divorce is happening. And hashing out your divorce in the middle of the IEP is the worst place to do it. You know why? Besides being totally embarrassing, the school's going to be like, cool, we're not signing the IEP, so I don't know that we really need to service them. That your kid might fall through the cracks. You don't want that. The time to talk about your divorce is in divorce mediation. The time to talk about your disagreements about the IEP and what your child's services should actually be is in divorce mediation. It's with me. It's not with the school administrator. It's not with the SELPA. It's not in an SST 504 IEP meeting. It is not in the middle of due process. It's here right now as you hash out your disagreements and you iron out a new path for your family and a new parenting plan for your children. Your child's IEP or your child's 504 and the services they need, a lot of times people disagree about that. And the place to talk about it is here and now with someone who is trained to help you resolve that conflict, to help you see different sides so that you can reach neutral ground. So I implore you, don't take this to the IEP so it becomes chisme for the rest of the school community. Mediation is confidential. Bring that drama here so that we can make sure holistically your child's needs are met. They're met when they're at home with you, and then you and the other parent are on the same page so that you can go to the IEP team and be like, this is what our kid needs. Yeah, we're getting a divorce, but we are on the same page. This is what our kids need. This is what I need you to do. You are your child's advocate. You are your child's advocate first. So put your child at the center Think about what is in their best interest. It's in their best interest to have stability, consistency, predictability, and it's also in their best interest to have the best services in the least restrictive environment possible. And they cannot have that if you and their other parent are fighting about what that should be. I am here to help you. I am here to help your child because I have over 20 years of experience in education. Do not allow your divorce to cause your children to fall through the cracks. I'm here to help. Reach out to me. Have a great day. There is hope.